Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Here on the 440 Sports Network, your favorite program. We're back. We did not do a show on Friday. We did not do that because I figured let's just do it Thursday night at the end of the game or at halftime of the game. And boy, was the reaction very, very strong. We've got a lot to get to. The fallout of Cam Ward's, I'll just say it, horrific. I don't care what anybody else says or how anybody else tries to spin it. We will get to the fallout of Cam Ward's horrific performance against the 49ers, the statistics, the realities as far as how horrific that performance was, and the future for Cam, future of the Titans, future of really all of this. So we will get into that today on the program. Plus, we have got to hit, because I don't know if I did this on the pod. I don't think so, because we were two Titans 49ers, but I was doing this really all last week on Sirius. The Jayden Daniels stuff and some of the stuff I've heard about the Jayden Daniels situation. We'll hop into that as well. Plus, got some other things from the world of sports we will get into. And I do have to comment at some point today. I don't know exactly when that's going to be, but at some point today, I have to comment on the Pat McAfee new country music album. We'll get to that. First, though, I do have to start the program off by thanking you people. That's right. Because as of this week, Stillman and Company has officially surpassed 1 million views on YouTube. Now, I don't exactly know how good that is. People will ask me, they'll say, Jared, how's your podcast going? And I'm like, it depends. Are you asking, am I Joe Rogan yet? No. Are you asking, do I get more views, more downloads, more attention, more money than people that are probably in their grandma's basement that started a podcast that want to be heard? Yes. But I got to say, 1 million views. And in all seriousness, I don't technically know how old this channel is in terms of when it technically started. But the reality is our first show was on Labor Day. So we got to 1 million views in under a year. And that's worth, that to me, I don't even know what that's worth money-wise, but that tells me that, hey, we can do this. I was listening to WFAN in New York over the weekend, and they were like, here's what Jared Stillman in Nashville, you know him, Jared Stillman in Nashville. He's kind of the main Titans guy, which I cannot wait to play. I'll probably play it tomorrow on the program, but you know it's going to burn Kaharski's ass when he hears the WFAN host saying, Jared Stillman in Nashville. Oh, yeah, Jared Stillman. He's like the main Titans guy down there. But the fact that we didn't need anybody else, just us, me, Braden, Sarah Giles, Lindsay, everybody else. We didn't need a whole operation. We didn't. 1 million views in less than a year. Thank you for all of that. I also want to thank our presenting sponsor, which is Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I absolutely love them. Hiller takes great care of my home. They took great care of my home last week. Again, somebody that had access to the toilet in Jack's bathroom. I don't know who it was. I know it wasn't me. Put baby wipes, a bunch of baby wipes down the toilet. We didn't know. I tried to unplunge it. I tried it. Finally, we got Hiller out there. Hiller was there in 20 minutes. I scheduled it for the next day. Hiller was out there 5 minutes into the window of time, a 2-hour window they gave me. They were there, let's say, I think it was 1 to 3. They were there at 1:05, and it was done by 1:15, and we've had no problem since. That's Hiller. You just go run on your phone, happyhiller.com. I absolutely love Hiller. Hiller will take great care of your home, and I can promise you that they'll do that because, once again, Hiller takes great care of my home. I think Hiller is fantastic. And again, they've got the satisfaction of happy you'll be here. The service is free. If a customer does not like the work that is performed, Hiller will find a way to make it right. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, we have got to get to what Blake Beddingfield wrote at paulkaharski.com. If you don't know who Blake Beddingfield is, Blake Beddingfield is the former Titans director of college scouting. He was hired into the Titans organization by Floyd Reese, and he was there for a long while after Floyd Reese. His final draft with the Titans was the Corey Davis-Adoree Jackson draft, but he was instrumental, according to the Joe Retro Derrick Henry piece, in getting the Titans to select Derrick Henry. So Blake Beddingfield does know what he's talking about. And he writes a column after every game for paulkaharski.com. And every week, I can't wait to see what Blake has to write. Not that I always agree with Blake, but I know Blake's got skins on the wall, and he's an actual scout, and I want to hear what he has to say. And Kaharski sent me a text on Friday, and he said, you are going to eat up what Blake says. And normally I eat up what Blake says, so I'm like, okay, let's see it. And Blake did not hold back when it comes to Cam Ward. The title at paulkaharski.com, quote, Blake Beddingfield, Cam Ward wants to play like Patrick Mahomes. Titans need him to be more like Brock Purdy. In Blake's game breakdown, he completely goes over Cam Ward and the misfires and what went wrong. And he also talks about what went right for the team. Doesn't seem like, according to Blake's write-up, that much went right for Cam, but he does talk about what went right for the team, you know, what's good, his positives, his negatives, etc. But here's the money segment of the story that Blake wrote. And again, I always hear Paul on his pod pumping up why you should be a member of paulkaharski.com. And since I'm going to take a big fat chunk out of something from behind a paywall at paulkaharski.com, I'll use this opportunity to tell you this is why you should subscribe to paulkuharski.com, is for content like this. A former Titans scouting director who watches the Titans every week, knows the backstory, knows ownership, knows all of that, breaking it down, and I believe unbiasedly. Is that a word? I believe the way Blake breaks it down is not biased. If anything, what comes out in Blake's pieces that I've noticed is he craps on J-Rob. Like, if he gets an opportunity to crap on J-Rob, he won't do it directly the way that I would do it if I was probably not happy about being fired out of the NFL by somebody. But I definitely, when he talks about the former regime and what they did there and the mistakes that were made, he certainly does not sugarcoat anything. And so when it comes to what Blake said, he says Cam needs to be a game manager. Quote, the Titans coaching staff and front office need to forget where Ward was drafted and the expectations that go along with that spot and evaluate him as the player he is. They have to mold him by highlighting his best plays and not allowing him to be the improviser and playmaker he thinks he is. So what Blake is telling you is that all the things that you guys have said when it comes to Cam about, well, you know, Jayden Daniels, he immediately took the Commanders to the NFC Championship game. Cam is like Jayden Daniels. Blake saying he's not. Drake May had a bad OTA practice and a bad coaching staff in year one. Jared, Blake is telling you, he is not the improviser and playmaker that he thinks he is. He is not Caleb Williams. For as many people that say, well, Caleb Williams had a tough first year, but then Caleb Williams had a great second year, to which Blake Beddingfield's telling you, and I've tried to tell you for months and months and months, we're talking about Cam Ward here. We're not talking about Caleb Williams. The amount of talent that one guy has, i.e. Caleb, is significantly larger than the talent that Cam Ward has. And Caleb Williams, look at every metric, had a much better rookie year, even though the rookie year was not very good for the Chicago Bears. He had a much better rookie year than Cam. But for every Troy Aikman, for every single person that you are going to highlight as a young player in the NFL who struggled at quarterback in their first year and made it, I remind you, I'm talking about Cam Ward here. I'm not talking about Troy Aikman. I'm not talking about a guy, again, that was a legitimate 1-1 prospect in Caleb Williams and became a star in year 2, because Cam is not Caleb Williams. But because Cam was drafted at number 1, a lot of you people and a lot of the Titans seem to believe that, no, he is the superstar. And Blake is telling you, forget about that. He is not the playmaker that he thinks he is. Number 2, that Blake continues on. And I think that's probably bad enough. But Blake writes, quote, based on the 2025 season and preseason game 1 in 2026, Ward would be better served being a game manager who can situationally be allowed to push the ball upfield on predetermined throws and routes. The Titans have built their offensive personnel around a short to intermediate passing game with high volume but low yardage target Wan'Dale Robinson and effective route runners in Carnell Tate and Calvin Ridley. Tight end Gunnar Helm is a short route runner who can be a chain mover and red zone threat. The offensive line struggles the longer it must hold up on its blocks, but has success as a run blocking unit. The running backs have shown versatility as runners and receivers. Ward would be better off becoming a Brock Purdy instead of a Patrick Mahomes. But he's Mahomes, Jared. Gets me every time. Watching Ward play, he tries to do too much, but his talent only allows so many wow plays. Again, well, Caleb Williams, I'm talking about Cam Ward here. I'm not talking about Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has more talent. I'm not talking about Drake May. Drake May has more talent. I'm not talking about Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels has more talent. Again, Cam Ward, according to Mel Kiper Jr., he wasn't as good as J.J. McCarthy coming out. Read where the scouts and executives ranked him coming out. They ranked him ahead of Michael Penix and Shedeur Sanders. As of right now, the only quarterbacks in the last 5 years that were taken in the first round that were that were worse prospects coming out than Cam were Kenny Pickett, Michael Penix, and Jackson Dart. That's it. Ward would be better off becoming a Brock Purdy instead of a Patrick Mahomes. Watching Ward play, he tries to do too much, but his talent only allows so many wow plays. He has a chance to be a solid to good starter in the NFL if he can utilize the talent around him by winning with short gains and consistent production instead of swinging for the fences too often. Do you know what that means? I think most of you are smart enough to know exactly what that means. Blake Beddingfield thinks Cam Ward should be a game manager. Hey, let's have some predetermined big plays. So we're going to try to load up the defense, make them think we're running the ball. We're going to play action, and Carnell Tate's going to run down the field, and we're going to try to hit him man coverage with a bomb down the field. Not, hey, this is an option that Tate will be running down the field. If the option's there and you feel like you can make the play, go make it. There's a difference. I mean, the most effective plays Cam had on Thursday night against the 49ers were just soft little pitches and catches. The one to Calvin Ridley, short little route, just pitch, catch, Ridley cups it upfield. The screen pass to Gunnar Helm. Cam kind of drops his arm angle a little bit, just drops it off to Gunnar Helm, and Gunnar Helm runs and picks up a big first down. And so, again, I've said, if you want to make this work, I think you've got to upgrade the running game because you need to run the ball. I think you need to dedicate yourself to defense. I think you need better tight ends than Gunnar Helm and Daniel Bellinger. If you want to play ball the way that I think you're going to have to play ball to win with Cam Ward. And again, I think that's what Blake Beddingfield is saying. Now, I think it was the wrong guy to use in Brock Purdy as the example. My guess is Blake saying, hey, We need somebody that manages the game, that doesn't have a ton of talent, that gets the most out of their talent. Not Mahomes, not Josh Allen, not Caleb Williams, not Lamar Jackson, not somebody who's got some sort of superstar ability, but we need somebody that makes the most of what they've got. So let's use Brock Purdy in there. I've said this. To me, I think best case scenario is Cam Ward becomes Jalen Hurts. The problem is when you draft Cam Ward onto a terrible team, he's never going to be able to become Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts has to have the best receivers, the best tackles, the best running back, the best defense, and the best coaches to be successful. And you're never going to be able to get those things with Cam Ward unless you just keep drafting number one every single year because Cam is so bad. So he's saying Cam does not have the ability to be what you people think he is and what you want him to be. And that is the number one problem facing the Tennessee Titans organization. Again, just listen to it. It's just so casual how Blake says it, as if this isn't the biggest slap in the face to what the Titans have been selling themselves. Not just selling the fans, but selling themselves. Ward would be better off becoming a Brock Purdy. Again, saying he's not the improviser and playmaker that he thinks he is. His talent is only so much that you need to make him Brock Purdy because you can't make him Caleb Williams. Now let's think about what that means as far as the Titans organization is concerned. Because once again, I agree with Blake. I have said this from the second that Cam was drafted. I said he's got talent, but he doesn't have that much talent. If I was on a bad team and I had the number one pick, like most teams with the number one pick do, and there is a true 1-1 quarterback, and I'm not talking the obvious, the Andrew Lucks, the Caleb Williams, the Trevor Lawrences. I'm talking Drake May. If there is a Drake May, if there is a Fernando Mendoza, if there is that pretty much every year there's one of those guys 1-1, except for just terrible quarterback classes like 2022, I would take the quarterback number one. Even into a bad organization, bad system, we'll take Matthew Stafford and then we'll figure it out. That is what most organizations do. That's what I would do. But I never thought Cam was that kind of player. And Blake Beddingfield is saying, Cam's not that guy, folks. But this is the problem with the Titans organization. And this goes all the way up to the top to Amy. Once again, Blake Beddingfield's advice for the Titans: reel Cam back in. Tell Cam, instead of we see you as Mahomes, this slam dunk, first ballot, Hall of Fame, top of the league, Super Bowl winning quarterback, we see you as Brock Purdy, the ultimate underdog story who gets every ounce of juice out of his ability. It's not exactly the same thing. And when it comes to the Titans and what they've sold themselves and what they've sold you, that's not what they think Cam Ward is. And this is the problem. Amy Adams Strunk was told by Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan that Cam Ward was that guy. Amy would have never considered unretiring Warren Moon's number if she wasn't told Cam was that guy. Amy is not dumb enough, nor do I think she involves herself to this point where she would make them draft a quarterback number one overall to run a short con. There's no way they sat there in the meeting rooms when they went to draft Cam Ward and they said, well, if this were last year's draft, he's probably going 12th or 13th or 15th, or he's there at 10 with J.J. McCarthy. No. They probably told her, we think he's going to be Mahomes. And she said, okay, well, let's unretire Warren's number. Let's put him as the face of our franchise without having pissed a drop in the NFL. Brian Callahan's letting him make decisions in game one of what they should do on third down. There was absolutely zero quarterback competition last year for the job. There was zero thought about Cam being on the bench to begin his rookie year because he's so good, Jared. And once again, Blake Beddingfield saying, he ain't that good. He is not Jayden Daniels. He is not Caleb Williams. He is not Trevor Lawrence. He is not Matthew Stafford. He is not Peyton Manning. He is not Joe Burrow. He might be Brock Purdy. And I think that, by the way, is disrespectful to Purdy. I don't think you can ask Cam to play Brock Purdy's game. Because compared to Cam, Brock Purdy is Greg Maddux with the football. I mean, I was not a Brock Purdy fan when he became the starting quarterback in San Francisco. I think the reason Brock Purdy got that big contract before last year is because he saved Shanahan's ass. Because Shanahan thought Trey Lance is what Mike Borgonzi thought Cam Ward is now. And so they thought Trey Lance was going to lead them to the promised land, and very quickly they realized we fucked that up. But instead of doubling down and hiring new coaches and getting new players and saying, we'll see, they just went with Brock Purdy. I thought Brock Purdy was fine. Brock Purdy was the starting quarterback his first year as a starter. Sam Darnold was number 2. I thought Sam Darnold was more talented than Brock Purdy. I still think Sam Darnold is more talented than Brock Purdy. Last year when Mac Jones got in there, I thought Mac Jones was more talented than Brock Purdy. But then last year with all those players that were hurt on the 49ers kept winning games because of Brock Purdy. And I was very impressed with Brock Purdy. So when it comes to saying, hey, Cam should be like Brock Purdy, whoa now. Cam's biggest problem is he can't put the ball where it's supposed to go. And Brock Purdy, while he might not be the biggest, he might not be the most athletic, he might not be the strongest, he might not have the best arm, Brock Purdy puts the ball where it is supposed to go. So I don't think you can ask Cam to play like Brock Purdy. Again, I think you got to ask Cam to play like Jalen Hurts. That has to be the best case scenario here, is that Cam becomes Jalen Hurts. But you'll never be able to have a team around Jalen Hurts for Cam. Like, you won't be able to have that team with the A.J. Browns and the Devontae Smiths and the 2 tackles, and it's just not there. That's why, again, I can't take Borgonzi. This is why I think Mike Borgonzi sucks as a general manager. Because Mike Borgonzi got the job, and he talked about Andy Reid in Kansas City. Again, when you hire a guy from the Chiefs, you're hiring a guy from the Chiefs because you want to be the Chiefs. Just like when you hire a guy off of Nick Saban's staff, you want Kirby Smart. Andy Reid did not overdraft the quarterbacks when they had the number 1 pick when he got there in 2013. He didn't overdraft Geno Smith. He didn't overdraft DJ Manuel. He used that first pick on Eric Fisher, a Pro Bowl left tackle. What'd he do? He traded for Alex Smith. Alex Smith had limitations. Everybody knew that. Even Andy knew that. But that's what they needed to do to build a team. And I thought Mike Borgonzi had seen that. He didn't. He overdrafted his Geno Smith or his EJ Manuel and convinced himself he was drafting his Mahomes. But at the same time, he convinced Amy that he was drafting his Mahomes. Which takes me once again to the whole point I've been trying to make, which is the Titans brass cannot go to the owner and say what Blake Beddingfield is telling them they need to do. They cannot go to her and say, we need him to be more like Brock Purdy. We need him to be more like Jalen Hurts. We need to develop him into a game-managing quarterback. And the reason they can't do that is because the Titans spent all those years with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, and there was so much belly aching about, oh, what if we just had a quarterback who's better than Tannehill? Because the second you get a Tannehill is the second you start competing with everybody that has better than Tannehill quarterbacks. And so you lose to Joe Burrow in the playoffs, and you lose to Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, and you lose to Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. And then that jealousy kicks in that we want our guy. We want our elite go-to franchise quarterback. And that's what happened here. And so Mike Borgonzi drafts Mahomes. I said drafts Mahomes. So Mike Borgonzi drafts Cam Ward thinking he's drafting Mahomes. He tells Amy he thinks he's drafting Mahomes. He tells the fans he thinks he's drafting Mahomes. Well, a year later, after you go 3-14, you can't look at all those same people and say, yeah, I fucked that up. I really drafted Jalen Hurts instead. Cannot do that. Robert Saleh. If you go to Robert Saleh and you say, Robert Saleh, you need Cam to be a game manager. You need to hope that Cam can become what Malik Willis hopefully will be for the Dolphins this year. He'll say, well, wait a minute. I promised this owner some sort of transformative plan. Remember? The reason he got the job was he wowed them with his plan for Cam Ward, which apparently was independent of an offensive coordinator, which I still don't totally understand, but it sounds good. So he wowed them with this plan for Cam. He said at OTAs when I was banging on Cam saying he was going to be a bust, Robert Saleh was like, we know we have a good quarterback. Doesn't sound as convincing, by the way, after the performance Thursday night against the 49ers. So Robert Saleh, who gets the job because of his plan for Cam, he can't walk into Amy's office and say, yeah, he's really not that good. We need to treat him like Jalen Hurts. Because if they did that, after everything that they have said publicly about Cam, after everything that they didn't do, they didn't go after Sam Darnold. They didn't bring in a better backup than Mitch Trubisky in case Cam really wasn't that good, and now let's put the other guy out there. They didn't do anything that says anything other than we think he's our Caleb Williams, and just like Ben Johnson unlocked Caleb Williams, Brian Dable is going to unlock Cam Ward. So anything that they would do now would be a 180. And they can't do that because they already sold Amy. They already sold the fans that this guy is not Jalen Hurts, that he's not Brock Purdy, but that he's going to be your Mahomes. And they've sold PSLs to the new stadium that he's the next Mahomes. And they turned down the Giants trade because they thought he was the next Mahomes. They can't now all of a sudden walk that back and say, yeah, we kind of screwed that one up. This was Mike Borgonzi just minutes after he drafted Cam Ward last year. And again, imagine him today saying, yeah, we need him to be Jalen Hurts. Yeah, we need him to be Brock Purdy. Yeah, we need him to be a game-managing quarterback. Even though we had a terrible team with the number one pick, got a huge trade offer from the Giants, and we decided to take the quarterback anyways. Here's what he said when they drafted him.
I think, Mike, that Cam would have been the best quarterback in a lot of different drafts you've been a part of in the past.
Yes, I think that the talent was there. I think the one thing that stood out to me when I first started watching him is he had, a lot of quarterbacks have, great arm talent, coming out. But the one thing that stood out to me was really just his instincts and his processing ability, the spatial awareness that he has on the field, his pocket awareness. Now, there's things that he has to improve, just like any other young quarterback. But those are the things that really jumped out to me that I thought, this kid has a chance to be special. And then just going through the process and getting to meet him. And, he's very smart. He's intelligent. At that first meeting at the Combine, we had a pretty good idea.
Okay. So Gentry says, would he have been number one in other drafts? And Borgonzi goes, yeah, he had the talent. So on that day, he told the fans, he's got the talent to be a 1-1 quarterback. The consensus did not believe that. Blake Beddingfield, once again, is telling you, Cam does not have that talent. But he already told Amy that he does. He already told the fans that he does. So he can't now turn around and say, yeah, he's really at best going to be a game managing quarterback. Then there was Robert Saleh. Remember, again, the plan that wowed Amy? Here's what he said when he got hired on Cam.
Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com. Can you walk us through a bit your plan for Cam Ward and how you and Brian expect to get the most out of him heading into his second year and into his career?
No, absolutely. Great question, too. You know, like Cam, from everything that I've gathered, just all the discussions I've had throughout the building and throughout the league, comes with an elite work ethic, elite character, an elite person. And, you know, when you look at his body of work as a rookie, a lot of these rookies, when they come in through the middle of OTAs. But so the biggest thing that we're going to work with Cam, just going all the way back to the beginning, you know, we've gotten a whole off season to work with him, take him back to the very, very beginning, both on the field, off the field, the process at which what it looks like to not only be a professional with regards to preparation in his body, but as a professional with regards to preparing from a game planning standpoint or a playbook standpoint. But, you know, just talking with Dabes over the course of the last few weeks, he is the perfect man to match up with Cam and to maximize who he is. So again, we're really pumped to get to work with Cam and get him to where we all know he can be.
We're going to get him to where we know he can be, which once again, Blake Beddingfield told you after game 1 of year 2 is, maybe more like Brock Purdy. That's not going to fly. Again, when you're making a decision about the quarterback, that is arguably the most important decision a franchise can make. You can have bad coaches and win if you have a good quarterback. Now, the quarterback isn't the whole team, but the quarterback is a big part of the team. When they decided to pick Cam, they unretired a Hall of Famer's number. They talked about how he had comparable traits to Mahomes. When Robert Saleh got hired, he talked about all the things Cam could be to get him to the point where we know he can be. That's what we're going to get out of Brian Daboll. And I have said this time and time again, he's just not that guy. And if you want to win games this year, if you want to protect your job, because if they go 3-14 again, I think she'll fire everybody. And I think she might have every right to do that because once again, I think she has every right. If they were to walk into her office today after the 2 years of gaslighting that they must have done to themselves when it comes to the quarterback, but also to the fans and to her, and they said, yeah, actually, we realized we fucked that up. Cam's really not all that good. Yeah, we could have signed Sam Darnold, and we could have traded with the Giants picks. We could have signed Daniel Jones. We could have signed Mac Jones. Mac Jones wanted to be a Tennessee Titan, and we had no interest because we were so smart. But yes, now we think he sucks and he needs to be more like Curtis Rourke. If that happens, she'd have every right to fire them. They just wasted $40 million of her money in the number 1 pick. So they're not going to do that. So what they're going to do is they're going to chase what they believed was the case 2 years ago that is just not reality now. And that's probably not going to work. And so I love it. The Titans have dug themselves into such a hole because of what they told themselves and what they told everybody when they drafted Cam, even though there were choruses of league executives, scouts, draft analysts who said, well, I mean, he's not Caleb Williams. He's not Jayden Daniels. He's not Trevor Lawrence. He's not Drake May. He's not even Justin Fields as a prospect. But the Titans didn't want to hear it. You people didn't want to hear it. The moron coach didn't want to hear it. The consultant, president of football operations who conned everybody in that building to thinking he knew whether or not the ball was pumped or stuffed, he didn't want to hear it. The general manager who came from the Chiefs, he didn't want to think about it. He wanted to skip ahead in the book. He wanted to start right off at chapter 1, Patrick Mahomes, even though that's not how John Dorsey and Andy Reid built the Chiefs. And I guarantee you, all the shit you people talked about Sam Darnold, I am sure they talked it too. I'm sure they believed that Sam Darnold was no good, or at least wasn't going to be as good as Cam Ward. I mean, when I was in Kansas City, and I did see somebody asked if I could do the Borgonzi impersonation. Trent says, Jared, do the Borgonzi. When I was in Kansas City, I mean, Alex was a great quarterback. He came in, he solidified the quarterback position, which was the most important thing at the time to solidify that position. But every year we'd get into playoffs. We'd lose to Brady. We'd lose to Roethlisberger. So we knew we had to be better. So he just skipped that step. Just chapter 1, Patrick Mahomes. That's not how the book is written. The foreword may be written by Patrick Mahomes. The introduction to the book may talk about how Patrick Mahomes turned the Chiefs from a competitive team to a Super Bowl team. But that's not the first chapter of Andy Reid's Kansas City book. It's Alex Smith. It's not Patrick Mahomes. And this guy wanted to skip it. He wanted to go right to Mahomes. Just like Kyle Shanahan tried to skip it with Trey Lance. And instead realized, I'm better off with Brock Purdy. And that's why this team's going to stink. Because they're going to ask Cam to do something he can't do. And they either have too much pride or too much invested in their careers in admitting Cam can't do it. So that's the first thing today. And man, the fallout from the Cam stuff, I mean, it was national how awful Cam was when it came to the game on Thursday night. So I do wonder, because I said this on the postgame show on Thursday, I go, what are they going to say Friday? What are the true blue boo-hoos going to say on Friday to defend that god-awful performance? And that takes me to Pro Football Focus. Did anybody see where Cam Ward ranked after the official first week of the preseason is over? There were 91 quarterbacks that threw passes this weekend in the NFL. Whether it was, the very, very best, Josh Allen played in the preseason, Joe Burrow played in the preseason, or the very, very worst, I don't know, Will Levis. By the way, the worst passer, according to PFF this weekend, was Brandon Allen, who is the third stringer with Callahan in New York. Make of that what you will. Cam Ward ranked 89 out of 91 passers in both passing grade and offensive grade, according to Pro Football Focus. Here is the grouping that Cam Ward finds himself with. If you're looking at the screen, I have now just put it up. For reference, Will Levis was 65th with an offensive grade of 51.1. So PFF says Will Levis sucked the other night, but he was 51.1. He was 65th. Cam was 89th, ahead of Cam Miller. I don't even know who that is. And Brandon Allen. Here's who is ahead of Cam. Kyron Drones, who I remember 2 years ago playing for Virginia Tech, getting his ass kicked by Vanderbilt. Jack Strand. I don't know who that is. Bailey Zappi. Tua. Dylan Gabriel. Stetson Bennett. Trey Lance, Quinn Ewers, Kyler Murray, Josh Johnson, Cooper Rush, Shane Buechele, Tyson Badgett, Graham Merritt, J.J. McCarthy, Max Brosmer, Connor Bazelak, Sean Clifford, Tanner McKee, Spencer Rattler, Nick Mullins, Sam Hartman, Josh Dobbs, and Will Levis. That is a collection of bums. The who's who of shitty quarterbacks. And the only guys that are starters that are in that group, once again, Tua, Kyler Murray, guys that teams have tried to convince themselves are dudes because they drafted them number 1 in Arizona or number 5 in Miami. That's awful. So I do want to know, you guys got to tell me, because I was doing national radio on Friday. You guys got to tell me, what was the excuse making? Because I bet it was just beautiful out there. I bet I got to know what local radio was saying because, again, with the Cam boy, I'm sure there was a lot of, it was just one preseason game and they hadn't schemed anything up. But you guys got to tell me. All right. We'll get to the other stuff here in a second. I do want to hit some of your reaction again when it comes to Cam Ward. TDG, back in the chat, he's saying, I would give this piece credence if it was after year 2, but right now it's premature. It's too soon to say that Cam Ward stinks.
The Cam Ward excuse of the day.
It's too soon. It's too soon. Last year, he's a rookie, Jared. He's got bad coaching. He's got bad teammates. Well, now doesn't he have good coaching? That's what you guys told me when Brian Dable got hired. Even though Robert Saleh was 20-36 as head coach of the Jets, and they busted on Zach Wilson, who was a better prospect than Cam, Saleh and Dable was the dream team, and that was much, much better than Big Bad Callahan. And they were playing 49er backups. Well, they weren't scheming it, Jared. And you think Kyle Shanahan was? And that's why Curtis Rourke lit your ass up? I don't know. One person says, honestly, us Titans fans have been fiending for a Mahomes for a long time, go through all the QBs over the years. It's a long, sad list. I mean, everybody always wishes they had Tom Brady. Duh. Everybody who doesn't have Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers or Joe Burrow wishes they had Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or Joe Burrow. Look, I love Sam Darnold. If you went to Mike McDonald and you said, hey, I can get you Peyton Manning in his prime, he would do that. Everybody wants that type of guy. But what you can't do is what the Titans have done, and they went and they took a guy who is not Peyton Manning as a prospect, who is not Patrick Mahomes, who is not Caleb Williams, and they drafted him and told everybody he is Caleb Williams. And that's the big problem. One person says, why won't they hold Cam to the same standard as Will Levis? They're crickets when it comes to criticism of Cam Ward. The reason that they're crickets, and I think you're talking about they being the Titans, they don't have a choice. Levis sucked in the offseason of year 2, just like Cam has sucked in the offseason of year 2. Levis had problems at OTAs. Levis had some problems at camp. Levis, I don't think it was as bad as the preseason game that Cam just had at San Francisco, but Levis had problems now. Like there were a lot of questions. And remember Brian Callahan said, well, it was hot outside. They can't do it because right now they're all operating from the place of we're going to make him Mahomes. So if they, after one preseason game, get up there and go, holy shit, this guy, he can't hit the broadside of a barn. Well, now how are they going to get through the next 17 games? That's like I saw Saleh at his press conference was asked about the secondary, which was absolute dog shit against Curtis Rourke and the 49er backups. And he said, well, we're not going to panic, but there's a sense of urgency. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean? A sense of urgency to get the secondary right. You can't go back and undo the Cordell Flott contract. You can't say, you know what, instead of jumping out to sign 2 corners at top of the market money, what we'll do is we'll lay back and we'll sign Roger McCreary for a 2-year middle market money instead of paying Cordell Flott because Cordell Flott kind of sucks. You can't do that now. You're stuck with what you have. This is what happened a couple of years ago at right tackle. In 2024, Callahan kept saying, well, if we get into camp and it's not good, we'll scour the waiver wire, we'll make a trade, or we'll figure it out. I'm like, you can't figure it out in September and October. Nobody gets rid of their 3rd tackle or their 4th tackle. So the only guys out there, Austin Deculus, who was trying to protect Justin Herbert last year because they lost all their tackles in San Diego, in LA with the Chargers. Big Orange says, can Cam be McNair? Well, here's what I think is funny about the idea of him being McNair. When Steve McNair was drafted, Floyd Reese, the general manager at the time, went right to the podium and said, he is not playing for 2 years. Period. He is going to sit the bench, and we are going to bring him along slowly. The Titans have already put Cam out there. They've already fired a coach. They've already changed the lead football executive. So unless you want to wait until year 5, like the Oilers Titans did, no, he is not going to become Steve McNair. He also isn't as big as Steve McNair, which is a problem because when, again, everybody is playing their best, the big good guys always beat the little big guys. This guy says, keep the same energy when Cam tears up the season. I think everybody will remember that I'm the guy who didn't believe in Cam Ward if Cam Ward balls out. But as of right now, all we have to go off of is what we saw Thursday night, which again, Thursday night said Cam, according to PFF, was the 3rd worst quarterback in the NFL for the entire preseason week 1 slate. Think about how many quarterbacks didn't play. That's 91 guys who played in the first preseason game. Half the league doesn't play their starting quarterbacks. San Francisco didn't play their starter or their backup at quarterback. And Cam was still 89th out of 91. One person says, Jared, you did not get the memo this week. You're supposed to start your show saying Cam bounces back Sunday. So here's the thing. I saw that the media was saying Cam did have a good practice yesterday. I didn't see it. I don't know how practice was today. I don't care how practice is against the Titans. I do not care how Cam practices against the Titans at this point. You know, every year when it's OTAs and off season and the start of training camp, I'm there. And this is how it was when I was doing the radio show, and this is how I do it now. You guys can't see practice. So I go to practice, and I tell you what I see at practice. But once they start having joint practices and they start playing preseason games, the need to know what happens at practice becomes less and less. Now, on Friday, they will practice against the Seahawks. And how he does on Friday matters to me. How he did in the practice after they got back from San Francisco, I don't care. How he did today, I don't care. How he does on Wednesday, I don't care. And I don't care because anytime Cam does something well, can we not just assume that it's because the Titans secondary is absolute horseshit? Because Curtis Rourke didn't have any problems tearing them up on Thursday night. Now, if Cam plays well on Friday against the Seahawks and then plays well in the preseason game on Sunday, then we'll have a different discussion. But as of right now, I could give a rat's ass how Cam does against the Titans secondary. To me, that may be more of a sign of the Titans secondary that Cam had 2 strong practices against the Titans, went to San Francisco, did not practice well, played horrifically against backups, and then got back to Nashville and practiced well against the Titans. To me, that sounds like a problem with the Titans more than it sounds like a good thing for Cam. For whatever that's worth. One person says, well, he does consistently live at the bottom of the PFF grades. That has changed. That has not changed yet. We'll see in the coming weeks if he can change it. Too funny to me. Which is, one person said, the Black and White Sports Football YouTube channel. Jared, you got a shout out for seeing it all about Cam. I don't even know who that is, but thank you. Again, they were playing my cuts on WFAN on Friday because I guess the way they were looking at it was the Titans suck, Jets and Giants have to win week 1 and week 3. I think that'll be a topic for later in the week. One person says the Cam boys say that he was good last year, but you have to squint to see any good last year. One person said at least Cam had a Netflix show. He had a Netflix show and a Tubi show. Cam's great at getting documentaries made about him, about how he's awesome. The problem is that when it comes to the actual football games, he's not very good. Or at least hasn't been very good yet. So when it comes to the Titans, let's see on Friday how Cam looks against the Seahawks. And then let's see in the game on Sunday. By the way, I will not be able to go to practice on Friday I am bummed out, but the reason I won't be able to go to practice is because I'm doing Stephen A. Smith's radio show. And when they call you and they say, hey, can you do Stephen A. Smith's radio show? I am not saying no to that. So as much as I would love to see Sam Darnold practice against the Titans, you guys know me. You know I would be out there. But they want me to do Stephen A.'s radio show, so I'm going to do Stephen A.'s radio show. That's just me. All right, let's hit some of the other topics. Let's get to Jayden Daniels. So last week on XM, this was a big topic. I woke up on, I think it was Thursday morning, and the story had come out that Jayden Daniels had sent a cease and desist to LSU about using his name, image, and likeness because he was upset that his number 5 was being given away. And I thought that that was some crybaby bullshit, but I did not know the lengths at which it would take off of people laughing about, pointing the finger, and making fun of Jayden Daniels with the fact that this was absolutely some crybaby bullshit. Now, I said this right away, which is if you are a quarterback, the standard for how you have to act is different than everybody else. If you're a quarterback, you're a person too. You're going to have your hobbies outside the game. You're going to have your life outside the game. But everything you do gets dissected. And the reason it gets dissected is because we've seen over the years talented quarterbacks whose heads weren't in the game. And that's a red flag. We've seen very talented quarterbacks that have gotten sidetracked by their lifestyle situations, girlfriends, parents, drama, etc. Vince Young is one of the most talented players to ever play for the Tennessee Titans. And Vince Young's problem was Vince Young did not take football seriously, and his coach didn't believe in him. Half of that was his fault. The other half was Jeff Fisher's. Through 2 years of being an NFL quarterback, I've seen nothing out of Jayden Daniels that would make me think Jayden Daniels doesn't have it together to be a franchise quarterback. But this garbage, this makes me very, very concerned. If I was a Commanders fan, if I was Adam Peters, the general manager, if I was Dan Quinn, the coach, if I was Josh Harris, the owner, I would be mortified by the fact that during the season, Jayden Daniels wants to get into a dick measuring contest with LSU about who should wear the number 5. And not only that this dick measuring contest that Jayden Daniels wanted to have versus LSU, he thought he was going to win. I asked Matt Moscana, and Matt Moscana is the authority when it comes to what's going on in Baton Rouge. I said, who leaked that cease and desist letter to the press? Because the only way the press gets it is if either the person writing the letter or the person receiving the letter then gives it to the press. And he says, Jayden Daniels' people thought that the public was going to side with Jayden Daniels. Now, Joe Burrow, by the way, who's very smart, when he was asked about it at his press conference, he said, they told me that nobody else would wear it, but you never know. Which Joe Burrow wanted everybody to know that they told me. Even though Joe did not specify who they is, and since LSU has a new president, new AD, and new football coach, I can't imagine that the they that told Joe Burrow that has any real authority in this situation. Good job by Joe Burrow. That's how you handle it. What Jayden Daniels did is how you don't handle it. But the reality of the story is this, from what I've been able to pick up. DJ Pickett, who is an All-American corner, was promised number 5 by Brian Kelly. So much so that it was written into the NIL agreement. He told Miami, Ohio State, and LSU, if you want me to play for your team, I must wear number 5. LSU, Miami, and Ohio State all said okay. If LSU had said no, he would not have gone to LSU. Then when he gets there, Brian Kelly gives him number 3. If there's anything I've learned, it's that Brian Kelly apparently is the ultimate piece of shit. With everything that he's ever done, with every interaction he's ever had as a head coach, it sounds to me like Brian Kelly is once again the ultimate piece of shit. Going all the way back to Notre Dame And then the way he tried to leverage LSU to get a better gig out of Notre Dame, and Notre Dame was like, go, fuck off. And he goes to LSU and he wears out his welcome within a month. And he's already gone. So he promises number 5 to DJ Pickett. They put it into the NIL agreement, and then he reneges on his promise. So Lane Kiffin takes over. He's got an All-American corner who was promised number 5, and it wasn't given to him, and the transfer portal is open, and the All-American corner says, if you don't give me number 5, I will leave. If you don't give me the number that I was promised, that I said I'm only going there if I can wear that number, I'm out. Lane apparently what I've been told, Lane sends voice memos or voice text messages that disappear as opposed to actual text messages, which makes sense because once again, I mean, it's Lane. So Lane sends voice memos out that will disappear, and apparently he and Jayden Daniels had sent voice audio to each other. I don't know. And Jayden Daniels got mad about it. The internet is undefeated when it comes to stories like this because everybody's been shitting on Jayden Daniels. But I come back to the moral of the story. I can't be mad at DJ Pickett. DJ Pickett said, this is important to me. And when I'm picking a school, which is my right, this is important to me. I'm letting you know this on the front end. I hope you're okay with that. They all said okay. I'm not mad at Lane Kiffin, who I think is, again, just like Brian Kelly. I think Lane Kiffin's kind of a piece of shit. But Lane Kiffin said, I talked to everybody. I tried. This was promised to him ahead of time. This was... The real culprit here is Brian Kelly. And the other culprit is Jayden Daniels for acting as if his number was retired when it hasn't been retired yet. And this makes me wonder, can Jayden Daniels really be a franchise quarterback? Shouldn't Jayden Daniels be worried about the football season? And I said this when the Netflix documentary came out. I said that stuff with his mom, that's going to be a problem. Because even though they say his mom's a good agent and his mom's a negotiator and she's got experience, at some point there's going to be a Mrs. Jayden. And Mrs. Jayden is not going to let Mama Jayden run the show. I can tell you that right now. I think we've all been through that. Next up, the WNBA. So I actually watched the WNBA game last night. Indiana and Caitlin Clark versus Atlanta and Angel Reese. Caitlin Clark in Indiana won in overtime. She had 26 points, 9 assists, and it was a great game. And the place was packed and the energy was high. And you know what I've realized about the WNBA? The WNBA is not going anywhere. And Caitlin Clark is absolutely the ignition to what has happened with the WNBA. But at this point, the progress that league has made is undeniable. The reason Fox News spends so much time talking about the WNBA is not because they're trying to make the WNBA popular. They're talking about it because the WNBA is popular. I can promise you, over the last 30 years with which this league has existed, I'm sure there were plenty of individual issues over the years that would have been great hot button issues in a very divisive political climate, which is pretty much the bread and butter of cable news. But the reason that cable news never made a big deal about the WNBA was because nobody cared about the WNBA before then. Now, people do. And I think the reason people care about the WNBA is a confluence of a lot of different things, one of which being Caitlin Clark. So number one is Caitlin Clark. She plays the game unlike anybody else. That doesn't mean she's the best player. It means she's the most fun to watch. The most fun quarterback to watch is not necessarily the best quarterback or the Super Bowl winning quarterback, but he is still the most fun to watch. Lamar Jackson, very fun to watch. I don't even know if you can win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. But yesterday's WNBA game, I could not get over Angel Reese. Angel Reese doesn't understand. She is not a co-star of the WNBA with Caitlin Clark. She's a supporting character. Just like Sophie Cunningham is a supporting character. But Angel Reese wants to be the co-headliner. She wants to think that this is women's basketball made popular for you by Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Angel Reese had a game-winning, wide-open layup last night, and she missed it. And I'm like, watching Caitlin Clark. Caitlin had 9 assists last night. She had 18 if her teammates could have finished. These two players are not even in the same stratosphere. They shouldn't even be playing in the same league. They're not in the same zip code. They're not in the same area code. And yet I'm sure somebody out there will say, hey, Angel Reese is just as important as Caitlin Clark. By the way, here's why the WNBA is popular now. And again, they're not popular because cable news talks about them. People that go and sit in the 300 levels are not sitting in the 300 levels because they saw Fox News arguing about transgendered athletes and said, let me buy a ticket to the game on Saturday. That's not why the WNBA is popular. The WNBA is popular, number one, because they now have watchable stars, led by Caitlin Clark. And then with Caitlin Clark comes the rivalries with other players like Paige Beckers, who she played on Friday night. And when people see star players going at it, it's worth watching. Number two, women's college basketball is more popular than it has ever been. Number three, it's easy to watch the WNBA. Baseball makes itself harder and harder and harder to watch. There's all the streaming companies. There's Saturday night exclusives with Fox. The Braves sometimes play on Fox in Nashville, which is a Atlanta Braves market, and they'll put the Chicago Cubs or the New York Yankees on TV. We can't even watch the game when they do that. The Braves and the Reds played each other on a Saturday night on Fox when the Cardinals were playing the Cubs. And Major League Baseball has said Nashville's area is Braves and Reds, and we couldn't even watch the game. They have Apple TV on Friday night. They've got Peacock on Sunday morning. They got NBC. They got Braves Vision. They got the MLB app. You got to log in. You got to sign up. You got to sign out. Baseball's making it harder to watch. The WNBA is incredibly easy to watch. It's on ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, CBS, NBC, ION, which again is on YouTube TV and the skinny button. It's easy to watch the WNBA games. Click, it's on. And I think the third thing, the gambling community's in. Talk to somebody you know who is a true sports gambler or a sports handicapper. They know the WNBA. I don't really bet on the games, so I don't watch WNBA on the weekends, but the people who bet them, they're all in. So between the more marketable stars, the ease with which people can watch the game, the fact that college basketball is more popular, which I think has really washed away what used to exist forever with the, it's not men's basketball. No, it's not men's basketball, but we watch women's college basketball when our team's in there or a Caitlin Clark is playing a Gino Auriemma, whatever. The ease with which it is to watch the games and the gambling has made the WNBA, in my opinion, what the WNBA is today. And finally, did anybody else see this? Pat McAfee has a country album out. Now, I don't know who the record label is. I'm sure I know somebody with the record label that put Pat McAfee's music out there. And Pat McAfee can do whatever he wants. It's a free country. And if there's anybody who has taken advantage of the fact that it's a free country, it's Pat McAfee. That said, I don't know about you guys. I can't bring myself to listen to this. Lindsay said to me on Friday, she said, go ahead, put it on. Let's hear McAfee's album and let's laugh at it if it sucks or let's acknowledge if it's a banger. I said, I can't do it. I can't listen to this. I cannot do a Pat McAfee country album. I just can't. I mean, it feels like such an attention grab. I wouldn't even say it feels like a money grab. Pat McAfee has plenty of money. I don't know Pat McAfee. I've had him on my show, and this was years ago. Very nice when we had him on the show. He's talked about me on his show before and has said very nice things about me, which I appreciate. I am not looking to get into a pissing contest with Pat McAfee. I don't like his show as much now on ESPN as I did when it was just on YouTube, because I do feel like Pat has kind of become commercial. I think Pat does fit in well on game day. I think him and Nick Saban kind of have a good old school, new school vibe and a respect for one another as performers that I like. I don't like how they cover for every fucking coach that they're friends with on game day, but that's a game day issue more than a McAfee issue. I just can't listen to the Pat McAfee attention grab. I can't do it. I cannot do Pat McAfee. I'm trying to put out a country album, and you need to listen to it. Might be great. Who fucking knows? But it won't be me, because I just cannot bring myself to listen to that. It's as if I feel that listening to Pat McAfee sing music is beneath me. And that's why I have to ask, does that just make me a hater? Am I wrong for, again, Pat McAfee's music might be good. I don't know. I'm not listening to it. I am not listening to Pat McAfee sing country music. Can't do it. And if you can, good for you, but I can't do it. I do have to laugh, by the way. TDG says they got lucky. The Dream should have won. Yeah, they got lucky that Angel Reese missed a layup. The problem is Angel Reese always misses layups, which makes me laugh all the time. All right, that's it for us. Again, like and subscribe, and thank you, seriously, to everybody that has gotten on board with this show. I mean, I have people that are messaging me from time to time. They're like, I'm a Jet fan, but I love the show because of the Rossini stuff. I'm a Saints fan, but I like the show. Somebody hit me up as a Jags fan who likes the show. Again, YouTube is worldwide, which has made our show, even though when I was on the radio, it was on YouTube, which has made it more than kind of a local Nashville show, but it is what it is. 1 million views in less than a year. Thank you all. Thank you to Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, been our presenting sponsor. Thank you to everybody. Braden, 440 Sports, you name it. But most importantly, you people. That's it for us. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Stillman & Company. We'll see everybody live tomorrow.